Police organizations are interesting creatures, and much of what we do touches so many different segments of our public and our communities that it's imperative that there be an ethical presence within police organizations. And quite frankly, that ethical presence starts the day that we take our oath of office. We have the Constitution in our country, we have the Bill of Rights, and it's incumbent on every police officer to ensure that those rights conferred upon our citizens are upheld, and that's what we do. You know, we oftentimes in policing laugh and joke about the ACLU and the civil liberties folks, but the reality is that police officers are the greatest protector of civil rights in our country. That's our mission, that's our job, is to uphold those. And so as a result of that, we have to have a code of ethics to be able to do our job and uphold those constitutional guarantees that every citizen is afforded. So how do we get there? That begs the question. How are we an ethical organization? How are we ethical police officers? And I'm convinced in my 34 years of policing that it starts at the top of any organization. It has to start with the chief, the sheriff, the CEO of that public safety agency, and there has to be an ethical credo or a code of ethics, a code of conduct that every employee of the organization has to be held to, and it has to start by modeling those behaviors at the top. So what I mean by that is walk the walk and talk the talk, and the chief, the sheriff, the senior command staff, middle management, line supervisors, and folks out in the field, the boots on the ground, need to adhere to those ethical values in every decision that they make. And it may sound a little bit Pollyannish, it may sound a little bit not the sexy side of policing, but it really is the core of what we do in our job. Value-based policing is the core of how we move forward in honoring those values and ethics that everyone expects from the police. And so what are values? What do they look like? What do they sound like? It can be a variety of things. Integrity is a value. Compassion, accountability, respect, excellence, service. Those are key core values that any law enforcement organization should adopt, and decisions should be made or filtered through the lens of those values. Am I exercising integrity in this decision? Am I exhibiting ethical behavior? Am I being compassionate when I think through what it is we're going to do? Am I holding myself accountable? Am I holding my subordinates? And am I holding my superiors accountable? That's an absolute imperative. Am I being respectful to everyone, including the guy that I just got into a fight with and had to stuff into my police car? Am I treating him with respect and dignity, even though he may have just tried to hurt me or hurt or injure someone else? Excellence. Am I doing the best job I possibly can each and every day? And service, and that's what we're all about, is public service. We serve the communities that pay our salaries in our respective jurisdictions. So that's what ethics and values to me looks like. Now, we might ask, how do we ensure those values and those ethics are being honored? Well, the reality is that, as I mentioned earlier, it has to start at the top. And the core values of any organization should be published. They should be talked about in a variety of settings out in our community. They should be talked about in roll call or briefings. They should be talked about in meetings between subordinates and supervisors for performance evaluations. They should be printed on posters, and those values and ethical statements should be posted in every visible place of the organization. What I mean by that is in the roll call or briefing room, in the chief's office, in every supervisor and commanding officer's office, in our non-sworn or professional staff workspace, in the lunchroom, in our holding cell area. Every place that a police officer or a member of the police organization is going to work or be present, those values and that ethical credo should be posted. It's a constant reminder of what we stand for and why we do what we do. The ethical principles we've discussed also extend into the private sector with our partners that work in private or corporate security or private investigators, folks who work in the campus public safety arena. It's absolutely imperative that ethical standards be adhered to. Take private investigations for a moment. Oftentimes those are very messy situations because they involve money. They're civil in nature. They're not criminal in nature, and the lines can become blurred. It's kind of a gray area in many respects. And I think the key is focusing on finding the truth. If we follow our heart and we follow the truth, keeping ethical standards and values in mind, we stay in the clear and we become successful. If something is so controversial or it's so impugned with potential for ethical issues, why would we want to go there anyway? The bottom line is this: we have to ensure that we respect everyone's rights. We have to follow the truth. We have to do the right thing for the right reason. If we don't adhere to those ethical standards, if we don't adhere to those credos and those values, then the end game is we have corruption. Things become corrupt. The truth becomes murky, not clear. Right and wrong become blurred, and that just is fraught with disaster. That can cost corporations a lot of money, and that translates to the community because they're the customer that these organizations serve. So it's imperative for the public to have confidence in the private security arena that ethical values are adhered to. Another issue that I think is important to talk about and keep on the radar of every sworn police officer are the issues surrounding two Supreme Court cases, one known as the Brady case, Brady versus Maryland, a 1963 Supreme Court case, and another one known as the Giglio case. And both of those cases focus on witness credibility and exculpatory evidence. And the interesting thing for police officers to pay attention to is many prosecutors' offices are really focusing on the Brady-Giglio issue, where you have a police officer who may have some issue in their background in terms of breach of integrity, charge of untruthfulness in internal affairs, some sort of issue involving integrity or unethical behavior. And as a result, prosecutors have an obligation to disclose that type of behavior to the defense on a case, and as a result, if they don't, they face sanctions. So prosecutors tend to be very sensitive to Brady and Giglio issues for the understandable reason. Now, the problem for police officers is if they find themselves in situations where they're unethical, dishonest, untruthful, committing some act that breaches the standard of ethics that we've all taken that oath to upheld, they can find themselves not having their cases issued by their prosecutor, being on what's called a so-called Brady list within their prosecutor's office. That can be problematic because essentially what we have then is a cadre of police officers who can't do any police work because their cases won't be filed on or they won't be called as witnesses on criminal actions in court. So the key is to maintain certification through whatever state agency oversees police certification. Officers have to be absolutely pristine in terms of ethics and value-based decision making so they don't find themselves in a situation where Brady or Giglio can adversely affect their career status.